What's going on, everyone? Josh right here, and I hope you had such a fabulous Christmas and New Year's. It's currently New Year's Eve as I'm recording this, and my kids are enjoying their holiday break, as am I, and they're playing Mario Party. Do you know how trippy that is? You know, I grew up with Mario Party, and now having two of my own kids play it, and they're good, y'all. Like, it's crazy how much quicker they pick stuff up. I played my daughter in a fighting game, kicked her butt a million times, and no kidding, she's 6 and she actually beat me. Like, how is that possible? Anywho, I'm specifically putting this episode out right after the holidays because it's all about families. Okay, from two incredible people who are senior leaders with a tremendous amount of responsibility. They have a family, and yet they're making it work. And, you know, I thought it would be so great to hear their perspective and get some feedback on how they go about their life and the experiences that shape them. The episode is titled, How Dual Career Couples in the Military Make It Work, with senior leaders Josh and Kristy Wiener. So, join us as we delve into the dynamic world of military leadership and relationships with our distinguished guests, Command Chief Master Sergeant Joshua Weiner and his wife, Chief Master Sergeant Kristy Wiener. In this episode, titled, How Dual Career Couples in the Military Make It Work, this power couple shares invaluable experiences and lessons learned from their extensive military careers. From the crucial role of communication and working couples with the family to navigating leadership positions, the episode unfolds a narrative of perseverance, teamwork, and mentorship, offering a glimpse into this unique couple's life and their past experiences that shape them, to include candid reflections on career success, work-life balance, and gender dynamics in the workplace. This episode is a treasure trove of insights for both military and civilian audiences, as we explore the intricacies of managing careers, marriages, and families. The guests impart valuable advice and strategies, creating a compelling narrative that culminates in a reflection on transformational leadership and teamwork. So don't miss this engaging conversation that captures a remarkable couple's applied strategy for keeping it all together, or at least doing the best you can to. Josh is the command chief of the 435th Air Ground Operations Wing, which provides battlefield and expeditionary airmen to combatant commanders and is capable of responding to humanitarian and contingency operations throughout the world. The wing has more than 1,400 personnel at 26 operating locations in Germany, Italy, and from the Baltics to the Balkans. Chief Weiner is responsible for the health and welfare, development, training, combat readiness, recognition, discipline, and effective utilization of the organization's multi-capable force. He enlisted in the Air Force September 1998 as an aerospace propulsion apprentice and has worked at various levels throughout the Air Force in his distinguished career. His wife, Kristy Wiener, is the Aviation Resource Management MAGCOM Functional Manager for United States Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa, and assignment of over 130 military and civilian 1COX2s. She oversees a $35 million annual flight and parachutist incentive pay budget and a $520 million annual flying hour program. She advises leadership on all matters concerning aviation resource management training, operations, and manpower. She enlisted in the Air Force December of 2002 as an aviation resource manager apprentice. So that's our two rock stars that we're talking to today. Their kids even make an appearance. Their kids were like so curious on what they were doing on a podcast that they ended up just, you know, joining us towards the end. It was absolutely adorable. I learned a tremendous amount from this couple. They give me so much hope in my own life as a father, as an airman, as a husband. It's just invaluable information, and I can't thank them enough for spending time with us to help even one person out there who is seeking this information. So with that being said, let's get after it.
You know, what it was to be a senior NCO, as you were talking about before, and even more so as a chief. You know, I remember a specific point when I was at a maintenance group, and, you know, there was no way that I was physically able to get done everything I needed to do. I actually went and had a conversation with my boss and said, hey, I cannot physically do everything I need to do on any given day. So I'm going to do the things that are important to the mission and the people. And the other things I'm going to kind of shelf. If you see something that I'm missing that you need me to pick up, let me know. He actually had a sense of relief. And then he said, Chief, I feel the same way. So you do the same thing for me and we're going to be all right. But if you go in it with that perfectionist attitude, you wear yourself out or you wear out others around you trying to attain that when, it may not be what's needed for the specific time you're at, right?
No, that's, I'm really curious on y'all's insights anyways, just because I feel busy, but I know y'all have more responsibility than even I. So, and then being a couple and both being chiefs, I mean, that's got to be a rare thing, right?
Actually, there's quite a few of chief to chief couples, I feel. There's quite a few here at Ramstein as well. We had left here from Berksdale, or, left Berksdale to come here. And there was quite a few as well. And I think the commonality is either folks have older kids, or I could tell you communication is like the key to all the things that make it work. Because as you know, being a senior NCO is not an easy job in itself. To get to being a senior NCO is not an easy job, and to be an effective one is even, causes more challenges, but it's important. And so communication has definitely led us to where we are.
I think the chief to chief thing is kind of like when you buy a new car, like you never see that car until you buy the car. And then as soon as you buy it, you see them everywhere. Yeah. So there's really a lot more chief to chief couples out there than you know about, and obviously a lot of mill to mill and probably growing. But once you see them, then they're more prevalent, I guess is the way to say it. So in fact, our neighbors are chief to chief couples.
Follow-up question. How many chief to chief couples are there where one of them is a command chief?
Our neighbor is the 3rd Air Force command chief, and her husband is also a chief. So
again, you are seeing it everywhere.
You just don't know until you start seeing it, and then as you do, it's more prevalent now. And
I don't know if you saw this, Josh, but Kristy sent me the talking points here. And so this is what she put down. She put down dual military and communication, strategies that have allowed us to be successful, importance in building up those around you, growing together, sharing with others, and how family and careers can work. It sounds like you kind of went in chronological order there a little bit, which I like.
that may be our personality a little bit.
It's like you're telling a story already. Josh and Kristy coming all the way from Germany, all the way around the world. We're talking right now. And I just want to thank y'all so much for your time today. And before we hit those awesome topics, I was hoping each one of you could give me the elevator pitch on who you are, where you work, etc.
Good.
So I am Kristy Wiener, and I am the MatchCom Functional Manager for the Aviation Resource community. Absolutely love being a One Charlie, love my job. Yeah, you just wanted to know our job, right? I'm here.
And where'd you grow up?
Oh, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida State. Woo! FSU. We're actually doing good this year. Super pumped about that. And
I'm in your neck of the woods. I'm in Florida at least. I'm at Eglin, so.
Nice. Okay.
If y'all ever come through here, let me know. I mean, so many people vacation here. Like, I really have seen a ton of people here. So you're ever in this neck of the woods, you let me know.
We actually vacationed there right before we came to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
See, there you go. I already knew.
So I actually joined to get away from my home. I wanted to see something different, and I got stationed in Florida. Where do you think I got stationed?
McDill?
Tallahassee. No, Panama City. Tyndall.
Oh, you were at Tyndall. Okay.
I got the closest base that I could possibly get. But
why does that always happen? I swear that happens so many times. Like, people are like, yeah, I'm stationed in my backyard.
Exactly. I tried to trade Cannon for Tyndall. Actually, I was gonna go, but they wouldn't let us swap because it was too close. But ended up being a blessing. I met the love of my life here 18 years ago. So life is good.
Oh, so we'll get into that too, how y'all met. That should be pretty interesting.
I think we'll have a couple of the reoccurring themes of, hey, everything happens for a reason. And I think that was one of those moments, because I got a similar story, that we'll get into maybe a little later, that's the same thing. If you get what you want, you may not get what you need, type of a deal. So,
Yes, and if
but
you've been in the military, we've all seen that play out many times, right? Where we think the world is over, we didn't get what we wanted, my career stops now, and then suddenly something else kind of opens up down the line that is like 10 times better, and you're like,
yep,
okay, this makes sense now. But go ahead,
100%.
Josh.
So Josh Wiener, been in the Air Force for just over 25 years now. Grew up as an aircraft maintainer, did 7 years on heavies, 7 years on fighters, 7 years on bombers, and then kind of jumped around. I'm currently the command chief for the 435th AGOW here at Ramstein, the Air Ground Operations Wing. Been here for a year and 4 months. Love what I do. I'm from Pine City, Minnesota, so kind of a small town in kind of east central Minnesota. Grew up in the same house from the time I was a little kid to the time I joined the military. And I joined to do 4 years and get out. Like, I knew that was my plan. I had it all down pat. I knew exactly what I was going to do. So much so that I turned down, the 2 extra stripes and the extra money to be an A1C coming in, because I knew it was 4 years for me. Lo and behold, I got a chance to go to Germany the first time, and figured out that, hey, I really like this. I'm pretty good at it. Let me keep going. And now 25 plus years later, still plugging away. So that's a little about me.
They really got their money's worth out of you, it looks like.
Yeah. So much for the 4-year contract, huh?
Right. Yeah. I'm 4th generation Air Force. So like, I think I was just bound to join, including my dad. And yeah, well, he was stationed at Andrews, switched to active guard. So that's the area that I grew up. I grew up on Andrews and that DC, Virginia area. When he retired, he became a civilian at Andrews as well. So that's my roots. That's where I grew up. And yeah, what a couple. Wow. Everyone has such amazing things to say about y'all. So I'm just so happy that y'all are spending time with me and, this tremendous audience that I know is going to listen to this. But as we roll into this, I don't know if you've listened to any of my episodes, but I try to ask random questions at the beginning. There's 2 of you, so I'm going to try to not ask like really in-depth questions. Otherwise, that might be like the whole episode. So the first question I have for each of you is, and I love asking this, but what's your proudest Air Force moment? Now, this is a moment where some people call it like their all-in moment, where their perspective changed, or where they really felt super valuable and proud of themselves in a certain situation. It could be something really small, like saving an airman's career, to saving their life, or representing the Air Force on a football stadium in front of, thousands of screaming fans. I'm just curious what that is for you two.
So I know this answer so well. So it actually, I was a staff sergeant, and I had an airman who, he was struggling a little bit, just, couldn't show up to work on time. Great airman, just couldn't quite get him to where he needed to be to fall in line with the military structure and the way. Tried different things, nothing would work. He, just wasn't meeting the standards, and lots of corrective action was happening. In the end, this amazing young man turned around, became an award winner, like close to being kicked out, to where he started winning awards, got promoted, is excelling in the Air Force now. And if at any time, I've only been in, I didn't share, I've been in for 20, I'll hit 21 in December. And, I've had a lot of airmen throughout the years, but this one in particular is one that I feel like a lot of people gave up on, and they were already kind of writing the story out. And it makes me so happy that he turned it around and proved to everybody, like, you can come back. You can have some hard years or some hard times and, say, hey, guess what? I'm a senior NCO now. What's up? Like, that for me is when I really, my soul bought into the military, into the Air Force and what we do. It's the people that keeps me staying, that keeps me going. And I'll say that young man was the one. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to put him on blast, but that was the pivotal moment. I'm going to also add, to add my worth, you give as a leader, you give, right? And that's what you're supposed to do. It's not about you, it's about other people. And I 100% have always been a giver, always will. It's not about me, never will be. But I went to senior NCOA, 5 years ago? Anyways, and I had the best class during this time, and I won't say I always had the best PME experiences, but this one was remarkable. Everybody was in there to help each other, and like we literally came together. We had a guy who wasn't quite getting it through this test, and so we all rallied around him. It was just remarkable, right? And at the end, multiple of us, and I had never won a PME award. Multiple of us won PME awards leaving there. And a lot of times in those settings, people, they're looking for maybe them to win, or and it was just cool that collectively together we did. And that's when I had a second like team oriented win. I don't know.
No, those are special moments. For the first story you told, I think sometimes we give up way too quickly. Sometimes it just takes the right mentor. Maybe that's not you. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to find someone else. Like if that connection and that trust for some reason isn't there, I think we need to put our pride aside and really find someone to connect with that person. But I've seen a lot of turnaround moments myself, especially when I was in honor guard and I have a moment to pull those airmen in outside of like their norm, and they get a different perspective on everything. And so I love that feeling as well, when everyone's kind of given up on this person, and then the right talk, the right mentor, the right message just speaks to their heart, and they start little by little kind of showing what they're capable of, and that builds their confidence. And then pretty soon, they're just crushing it, and there's like no better feeling than that. And then the team award, yeah, I'll tell you this one rule, and I forget it sometimes and I goof it up, but this rule has stayed true my entire life. You give what you get, right? If you're going to be a hater and hating on people, your life's going to be miserable. If you're helping people, even your competitors, in a sense, that love is going to come help you in the future. Like, that's just something that is so important. And we've all been there in that competitive mindset where we're all like, me, I need a bullet. I need to do that. I need to lead that. And I mean, honestly, I burnt out doing that, and it really made me miserable. As soon as I started like putting out just kindness to everyone and just what can I do for them, magically doors open for me. You know what I mean? So that's just, I think those are both beautiful stories. What about you, Josh?
So Kristy has a really cool story later that she might share that basically is exactly what you just said in regards to putting out and doing things together as a team and what you get back from that. Yeah, I realized when I said that, it probably didn't sound right. But for me, I told you I joined to do 4 years, and now it's been 25. And at a certain point, I figured out that it's more about the people, just like what Kristy said, than it is about anything else. And some of my proudest moments are the moments that no one else ever sees. I've gotten a chance to do a lot of really cool things for the Air Force, but the ones that I'm the most proud of are, when you get an email from someone that you were mentoring or just that you were a supervisor, and they say thank you, whether it's, hey, thanks for helping me get to where I'm at, or they just got promoted and they reach out and say, hey, I wanted you to be the one of the first to know. Those type of things are the thing that I think I'm most proud of, because, you are helping them achieve what they want, right? And so it goes to that give more than you get than you get. So those are the things I think I'm the most proud of. It's just the little under the cover type of things that you get back and say, hey, I appreciate you. I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's those moments where like you put them on a different course of their life. You helped. We all have those paths where it's like you can either give up or quit, or rise to greatness. And sometimes like you were that person who helped them choose the harder path that ended up getting them in this amazing place in their life, and nobody even knows it, right? Yeah. Just one of those things that you just carry with you. The power of that connection, and kind of reaffirms that for you. So no, I love those moments as well.
Even as a supervisor, people sometimes now think to be a good supervisor, you got to be liked, and you got to just always be nice. And some of those emails and some of those phone calls that I got were from airmen, NCOs that maybe thought I probably wasn't the best supervisor at the time, because I sometimes gave tough love. I would force them to do more than what they thought they were capable of. But then down the road, those are the people that were reaching out and saying, hey, thank you. Now I see it. I see what you were doing then. and it makes more sense to me now. But at the time, maybe they didn't think that I was the greatest supervisor. And I'm sure I still could have been better. But later they were able to see what I was trying to do for them, and it rang true. So that's why that email, why that phone call means so much later.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I've been in situations where like I've had a lot of trust right out the gate. And I've been in situations where I didn't have that foundation. But I gotta say, when I did have the trust, the criticism and the corrections come so much more easily, easy. Like they're very well received and productive. I notice without the trust, it's like talking to a wall. Just something I noticed, just something I'll sprinkle in the conversation. Okay, I got one more question for y'all. We talked about something positive. Now let's talk about somewhere where you had a misstep. Some might call it feeling like a failure. Some might call it a big mistake. Was there ever something that humbled you that really changed your perspective on, you as a person?
Every day. I mean, I'm just being real, right? Like, I'm a God believing woman, right? And I can tell you I make mistakes every single day. And I ask for forgiveness, and I hope to try to do better every day. I will say I've made a lot of mistakes, and there's many things I wish I could go back and do. I share the story about the airman when I was a staff sergeant. I wish all the stories could be that successful, but they're not, right? And being as mature as I am now, I know that if I could go back in other situations, I could have made different decisions, and the outcome probably would have been better, right? But you don't know what you don't know until the time comes. I will say this really isn't so much of a mistake I made, but a mistake that was that happened, and I almost gave up my career for it. I was a tech select, I think, maybe a tech sergeant at the time. I don't know what it was with staff sergeant, but that's where it all happens. So I had a supervisor who wasn't necessarily very happy within their job, and so they pulled me aside one day and they said that they hated my personality, they hated my work ethic, and they wish I would not have came to work there. And it destroyed
That's
me.
brutal. Who wouldn't get destroyed? That's a terrible thing to hear.
It took me down. It literally took me down. I will say my husband was a huge rock for me during that time. I was lost, right? I kind of lost me, like the parts that I thought was good about the person that God made me to be, I felt was just gone. And I really was going to throw in the towel. I was going to walk away from my career. Like that kind of was like a nail in the coffin. And I was like, well, maybe I just don't have what it takes to do this. But thank God that I have remarkable people in my corner who helped me. Like, you can't take what one person says and hold it to your heart and like take away from you all the good things that you can offer other people. And so I will say it wasn't just my amazing husband, but there was other people that helped me get through that. And I'm so glad that they did, because it has paid dividends. Thankfully we've been able to help a lot of people. So I say that to say, although it wasn't something necessarily I did, I let it affect me to the point where I was going to give up my career over it. And don't do that. Just word to the wise. Keep going. Keep trucking. Sorry.
No, that was my experience here at Eglin. I mean, if I'm being transparent, I was coming off of a 12 outstanding airman of the year for honor guard, for global strike, feeling like I could do anything. And then I met someone who wanted to knock me down a peg by any means necessary. And that's brutal. You start questioning yourself, like, hey, maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I'm not that good, and that's just a bad headspace to be in. But I will say I hung in there as well. And I'm glad I did, because it feels like forever in the moment. Like, this is my life now. But the reality is that person's going to leave. Like, that's kind of the benefit we have with our careers, is that you're going to leave or they're going to leave. But the dynamic will change. You just got to hunker down and just get through that short little time. It's not forever. So no, I can completely empathize with that situation.
And even in that case, like, yeah, there may be that person that's giving you that bad attitude or criticism or whatever they're giving you. But most likely in your life, if you're the type of person that you are, Josh, and that I know Kristy is, there's 100 other people in your life telling you the opposite, right? And so you have that one person giving you their negative aspect and their perspective. But on the other side, you just got to be willing and wanting and open to hear the good from other people too, and not only hear the bad. A lot of times we hear the bad and it stings more because it's a lot more painful to hear, and you internalize that more. Because I think if you're humble, right, when people give you positive compliments, you're quick to turn away and deflect because you don't want to take that on. I'm not very good at taking a positive compliment. I try to deflect, but when someone gives you negative criticism, you internalize that a lot quicker, and you take it on and you put it on your shoulder and you think about it and you analyze it and you're going over it. And so you just got to be willing to seek out the positive from other people when you get that negative, and just to balance whether it's a one-off or whether it's something you should really consider, internalize, and get better at. So for mine, I think a couple of things come to mind when you say that. When I was a young maintainer, like the thing that was the most important for me was fixing airplanes. Like I was a really good mechanic. What carried me, maybe not being the greatest airman, was that I was a good mechanic and I could fix the hell out of some airplanes. And so, and I got to a certain point, I probably didn't make the best decisions as a supervisor because I was more focused on fixing airplanes than taking care of people or training or those other things. And so I think that's one mistake that I made early in my career, where I was too focused on fixing things and doing that mechanical stuff, instead of really realizing that, as a team, you're able to do a lot more than if you're just one person or one small group of people doing really good stuff. And so I think that's one, just figuring out like, hey, it's more about people than it is about fixing airplanes or whatever your job jar is. The other thing is, I think when things happen now, I realize there's always three sides to every story. And I wait and I breathe through my nose, right? Because you're going to get the first thing that comes in and it may or may not be right. And then you're going to get the second thing that comes in, you'll have a little bit more clarity. And by the time you get the third piece of information that comes in, you're like, all right, I think I know what's going on here. But I have a couple of things in my career that, I was too quick to pass the judgment on what I knew based on my experience, and what I thought I knew wasn't what actually happened. But by the time that all came out, I'd already lost a little bit of credibility or a little bit of respect or a little bit of, you name the thing that you want as a leader, that you need as a leader. I lost them, right? And it takes time to get that back. So, knowing that it's about the people, and then taking time to breathe through your nose when first information comes in, and get a little bit more before you actually start making any critical decisions or passing any critical judgment.
That is a sound advice, because I gotta say, there's been times where I had airmen racing to me to be the first person to vent their side. Mm-hmm. And after you hear that first side, you're like, what? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is unacceptable. And then you talk to the other person, you're like, wait a sec. This isn't matching exactly what this other person like, and to just dive right in on that first person's trying to put you in their headspace, the panic, yes, the anxiety, the anger. They're trying to get you to their level. But yeah, there's always two sides, and some of the best leaders, you'll scream and shout, and they'll just kind of sit there and just kind of breathe and just kind of listen, and you're like, aren't you mad? Like, no, I'm still listening. I'm just listening. So those are some of the best leaders in my experience that have that patience to not let stuff trigger them, in a sense.
You have to care, but you can never get too high and you can never get too low, right? Like if you're the leader that is always way up in the stratosphere and then way down in the valleys, your airmen, your people that work with you, they don't know what they're going to get. And so when they come in, they're always kind of wondering, like, is it super high day or is it super low day? If you can remain even keeled, show emotion, show compassion, show all the emotions, but not so much that you're just over the moon or under the ground on any given day. I think that's helpful when you're building a team.
Yes, consistency is such a powerful tool in any hobby, any profession. Something I've learned as well through this journey. Okay, y'all are doing great, by the way. Y'all doing amazing. We'll end with a quicker one. for the third question, because I always ask 3 questions in what I call the Hero's Gauntlet. That third question is, what are you reading right now?
Ooh, man, hold on. I literally just bought, hold on.
So while she's looking that up, I am not a great, I don't really enjoy reading, but I know that I need to be doing something like that. So I've been big into Audible.
No, I'm the same way.
When I deployed, I figured out that I could get a twofer, right? So when I was out running, I was also listening to a book. And so now I'm working on my physical, health while I'm also working on my mental health and getting smarter. And so I got into that. The current book I'm reading is Burn In. This one's a little bit more about fun, but it came off of the Ghost Fleet, which is a little bit about scary reality. And this is about AI and how, how the FBI starts using AI in detectives and stuff like that. So it's a good spin-off by, I think, P.W. Singer. But that's my current read right now.
So mine is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's really cool because it really goes into depth about words and what the words actually mean and emotions tied to them. And I think that it really helps you as a leader because it can help you help other people understand that, maybe they're not going through as tragic of a thing, or put a word to it that'll help them understand. I don't know. I really love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that book is written really. That's one book I would not get an Audible on because my wife has it, and I was flipping through it, and like part of the experience is like how they designed it. You know what I mean? So that's a very unique book. And I probably need to take time to actually read that one. I'm revisiting Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last, because we did a survey in our squadron about, what kind of topics people are interested in. And that book has a ton of topics that a lot of like our airmen are interested in. It like really matched up well. And so I've been creating my own custom slide deck based on the findings in there and revisiting that book. And there's a lot of good stuff in that book, especially the part with like the brain chemicals and like, how that plays such a huge impact in like how we communicate, how we connect, how we trust each other. And I've never really looked at it from that angle, but there's a lot of truth to that. So that's the one that I'll recommend to anyone listening. So you guys have successfully passed the Hero's Gauntlet. You did phenomenal. You shared some cool stories. Thank you for that. We're going to roll into the topics here. So here's what you were hoping to inspire, or what you were looking most forward to in the interview, Kristy. You said hoping to share and inspire with others how we were successful managing our careers, marriage, family, while doing a job we love. Trust me, we didn't get here alone. Amazing people have helped us along the way. And the first topic that you list is dual military and communication and strategies that have allowed you to be successful. So I'm guessing communication is like a huge part. It's got to be. I mean, let's just roll into it. This is your story, your journey. Let's just roll into your very first topic here.
Wow. So, I mean, I hate to say it as simple as communication, but really it's what makes this all work, right? So I met Josh. I was a senior airman. He was a staff sergeant. We were both driven people in what we did, but back then we didn't have kids. So it was us in our own careers. He worked nights the majority of the time. I'm an ops girl. So usually I work days. And so we saw each other on the weekend. I mean, life is easy, right? Like I'll cook food, I leave it in the fridge for him. He knew how to take it to work. Like it was super simple.
That's a fun time to be married though, too. Like getting that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like after your whole life changes with your kiddos, I often reflect on that time with my own marriage. Like, wow, that was like, we were having a blast. Like we didn't even realize how much, like we were hiking and traveling. Like that was crazy. But no, that's always a special time, I think, in any marriage to have that, like, you just kind of figure life out together. And it's just such a fun time. Continue. Sorry.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I definitely recommend, if possible, have some one-on-one time before you start the kiddos, because that's a totally different dynamic. So, from the beginning, again, I joined to travel, to see the world. I wanted to get away from home. And now here I am, the closest base to my home. The people who were like my grandparents actually lived in Panama City, which is where I spent my summers. But I did meet him, so life was awesome. Still wanted to travel though. So I got an assignment to Alaska and we were super pumped. So I actually called him up and technically I asked him to marry me because I said, hey, I'm taking this assignment. Do you want to do this or not? Typical military 101, right?
I
Right.
just, got off mid-shift, was kind of sleeping, half awake, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And she's like, no, you need to think about it for a while, and then just kind of hung up on me. It's like, what the hell? So then I thought, like, did that actually just happen? Called her back, and it's like, yeah, let's do this. So that's how it all started.
So she's like, so she asked, you thought about it, called back, and then she instructed you, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. You're like, oh, got it. Okay. Roger that.
Yeah, basically. The cool of it is I had already thought that this was going to, this is the way it was going to happen. I wanted to marry her. So I'd already picked out a ring. So I went and got the ring. And then we had to go, because we we're in Florida and I wasn't a resident. We had to go 3 days prior to getting married to get a marriage certificate. So on the way there, courthouse is left, beach is right. I turned right. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's okay. She's like, no, courthouse is that way. I'm like, it's okay, just hang on. And I'm trying to go do the right thing, get down on one knee, and she was having no part of it until I finally just pulled over to the closest beach and we got that part out of the way. But this is where our communication started working so well, I think, right off the get-go.
Wow.
So we get married, and then so he was a tech sergeant at the time, or tech select, I think. Mm-hmm. And needless to say, they could not get a maintainer to Alaska. So here we are, got married. I just re-enlisted, and then I don't get to move, and I'm like, ugh! But next comes up, I got orders to Okinawa, to Kadena, super pumped, and he didn't get orders again. But
oh my goodness,
the AFPC gods were there for us. We had some people in our corner he was able to get an assignment matched with, and we went. Well, that's where we started having kids, right? And so the conversations needed to pick up in the communication. Also, we were both very driven people. I'm going to be real with you and tell you that our hours were very long. We typically left when it was dark. We came home way after it was dark. And really still saw each other only on the weekends, even though we were on the same, shift cycle. But that's what you do, right? You're driven, you go. So, we have our beautiful daughter, and he's working maintenance at Kadena. And I don't know if anybody's ever done that, but what do y'all do? I mean, like the maintenance folks, they like to work 14, 15, 16-hour days, all the exercises, doing a lot of things. And so we had to figure out, well, what does this look like, to be married and to have a kid, and me be driven and him be driven. And that's honestly where it all started. Like, okay, so we need to figure out how this is going to work, what their schedule is going to look like, to compromise too, and to communicate that to our bosses. And I think we did really, really well. Even I deployed before our daughter was even 1. And so he got to be a stay-home dad. That was before the 12 weeks and the year thing.
Right.
But it was cool because he got to be with her and they got to bond. And, it was a beautiful growth, between them, which was super cool. And then we came back, got pregnant with our second, which honestly, this is where I think the communication really picked up. Not only did we have our second son, or we're pregnant with our second son, but I have some major medical conditions. I had some problems in my lungs and my heart. And so I had to leave Okinawa medically. And I actually lived with his mom and dad. And so Here I am, I'm living with his mom and dad. He's stationed in Japan. I'm in Minnesota. I have our daughter. And I think we really found the big connection of talking to one another and like just sharing, so that we knew. and it just continued after that, like sharing the hard times, sharing the good times, sharing when, if I felt like he was working too much, I would say, hey, I need you to back up some, or if I needed to work a little more, like, hey, can you take more of the parenting role so that I can, accomplish this? And I mean, obviously it worked out, right? But we communicated about all the things, about the time, about the schedule, about who was running, what shifts and where they were going. And then not only, so along that whole road, we were supporting one another in our professional goals too. I'm just going to say, I think I got a little off topic, but I'm going to say it anyway. Talking about doing things that you don't want to do. So I remember whenever I probably still staff sergeant, maybe tech sergeant, and I didn't want to run for an exec position on a private org thing. I love being involved and volunteering and doing that, but I didn't want to do the exec position. And he was sitting in as a mentor, and he was like, Kristy, I really think you should try it. Best thing ever. I fell in love with being in the executive positions and helping make a difference. And like, it totally changed my perspective. And sorry, I am really hyper, so I apologize for the excitement. It's just what you
No,
get.
I love it. I think it's contagious. We need more of that.
Good. So literally it lit that fire under me, and I started being a part of every private org that I could. Even now, I'm the president of the Chiefs group, right? And it's not because I have to, it's because I genuinely love being involved and, doing all the things, but I wouldn't have done it, without his support and him communicating to me, what he thought it would do for me. And it actually did even more. So
I think, throughout that whole story, the key piece of it is just being able to share back and forth. And that goes whether it's, with your spouse, whether it's with your supervisor, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with, your parents, whatever you want to call, having the ability to be transparent, communicate, share. And then on the opposite side of that, listen, hear, and absorb, right? Because sometimes people will hear, but they aren't necessarily listening.
Right.
And so that goes both ways. And even throughout that, we were always there to support each other through good or bad. And there, we talked about one of the bads before where she considered being out. On the opposite side, we had multiple, amazing things go on. The hardware that this person has won next to me is, pretty insane. So a lot of highs, some lows that we had to work through and challenge through. But all in all, we're sitting here as two chiefs able to tell a story about, that you can be successful through all the difficult times, that if you team together and work together, you can both achieve the things that you want to achieve. And I think that's why we're such big people, and that we're about mentoring and growing and develop, because, it goes back to my mistake of, figuring out that it's people that make everything happen and not mission that makes everything happen. So.
Absolutely.
Can I have one more thing? Oh,
yeah, of course. This is your show. Whatever you want to add, just go ahead.
Sorry, I totally forgot. So before we actually got married, I told him I wanted to talk about the big five things, right? So you talk about kids, you talk about money, you talk about religion, you talk about roles, like finances, you do all the things. And I wanted to talk to him before we did it because I wanted to do it right. I should say we wanted to do it right. And so that's where the communication really started, even though I sort of asked him to marry me on. But really, like when we realized that we were in sync on those 5 major life areas, that's when it was good to go.
So even though
that is important to have those tough talks, right? Like you kind of in the back of your head don't want to ask because you're like, I just want this to work, but no, that is sage advice to have those tough discussions ahead of time before you make such a huge commitment.
Absolutely.
So I was just gonna say, yeah, she technically asked me to marry, but when we were having that upfront conversation, she said that we're gonna get married in under a year or I'm out. Like that was one of the things, and I was like, ooh, I don't know about that one. So I do gotta say I won. It was a year and 5 days when we got married. So I held out for those additional 5 days, which proved we were on the right strike right off the bat.
Heck yeah, that's called compromise. You got those extra 5 days.
See, there you go.
No, I love that. So it sounds like y'all are very organized. You're planning well. You're communicating well. There has to be some pitfalls that, you yourselves have experienced or other military couples that you've seen that you might have been friends with that they experienced. For any folks out there who might be a new mill-to-mill couple, what are some of those like pitfalls that they need to watch out for?
There's going to be times when, you know, people say work-life balance. I don't know that there's such a thing as true work-life balance, because you can't give 50% both ways and be good at either of them, right? So, when you're at home, you need to be at home. And when you're at work, you need to be able to be at work and give your 100% to that as well. But when you're a dual military couple, it becomes even harder, because you have to, if you have kids, you're trying to balance making sure you're developing them and, giving them all the things they need to be successful in their life, while also your spouse, everything they need to be successful in their life, and balancing your career as well. So it really goes into a lot of collaboration, compromise, and communication. So, without those things, I don't think either of us would have been successful in our marriage and or in the military, just because you have to have those things and you have to remain true. And if you aren't remaining true to what you're trying to achieve as a family, then it becomes really difficult.
Absolutely. So the one thing I'll add, I totally agree, is, and this is like holistically, not just mill to mill couples, but we all get tripped up by something that blocks us, right? Whether it's overworking, whether it's too much exercise, or there's so many things, some people, it might be beverages of choice. Some people, it's those things that take us away from the focus that we should, and maybe we put too much time towards that. And that's where I've seen a lot of breakdown happen with folks. I don't know that there is such thing as a balance. You know what I mean? Every day is going to be different, as it should be, right? Different obstacles come up. But really focusing on those things, like I'll tell you right now, too many times in my career, I overworked. I have regrets for working on weekends and bringing my kids in, because he was working the shifts, and I didn't have to, but I felt like I needed to. And so I would bring my kids with me, and I'd be plugging away while they had their toys on the floor. You know what I mean? Did that have to happen? No, it did. You know what I mean? Like, I did not need to do that. But because I was just so driven, I did that. And that was a pitfall for me. And I'll say I only recently, probably in the last couple of years, am getting a handle on that workaholism. So that would be my ad, is just to be cautioned to those things that trick you up,
I gotta tack on too. So don't miss the things you can't get back. Like, don't miss first. And the thing that sticks out in my head is Hayden was starting to play flag football, and I was working on an MSM. It wasn't a emergency MSM, it didn't need to be done right then, but I was in the zone, where you're just jamming them out. And I knew he had the game, but I was like, it's not a big deal. I'll hear about it when I get home. And so I finished it out. When I got home and I walked in, he says, "Dad, you missed my first touchdown." And I was like, man, like I didn't need to do that MSM at that point. I just was doing it because I felt like it was important to me or urgent to me, but it really wasn't. And I skipped that game and then missed his first touchdown. After that point, I started putting those type of events, things that are the firsts, in my calendar. And so, we're in the military, especially the longer you stay in, you get trained to listen to your Outlook calendar. And if it dings, you just pop up and you go to whatever it is. And so, as now my calendar would pop up and say, "Hey, Hayden's football," or Kaylin's cheerleading, or whatever it was, then I would just get up and go, because I was trained to follow my calendar, and I put importance on that, and I blocked it on my calendar for the day, so that I made sure I didn't miss those things that were first that I wasn't able to get back. So I would urge any military family member to do that, but especially if you're mill to mill and trying to balance that, how do you both be successful and also raise a family? That's one pitfall that I had to kind of figure out.
You know what I love about y'all is, I feel like when we start to have kids, and we hit that stride in our career where we're ready to go to the next level, and we are staying late or coming in early, it is hard to not overwork. I gotta be honest. Like, for my own situation, I was kind of an underdog and laid real low for like the first 10 years of my career. I was drinking too much, all sorts of bad habits that I was able to get behind me. But as soon as I started coming into my element and started getting my own self-confidence, it was like addicting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was right around the time I had my first kiddo, and I just kept staying late too many times, just doing whatever it takes to get to that next level. And that did not go over well with my home life. And then I ended up not getting promoted anyways. And I think it's because I was trying too hard. And I think that rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a time and a place for sure, right? Like there's times that you're going to have to work late and you're going to have to put in the extra work and the extra time. And then there's times when, you need to put in the extra work and the extra time at home, and whether that's taking leave or whether that's, working a shift that allows you to be with your family more, whatever it is, however you work that out with your supervisor. But that goes back into there is no such thing as just straight work-life balance. You can't do 50-50. It's going to ebb and flow both ways based on, where you're at. I make the analogy as an aircraft maintainer, growing up in fighters, like you can't have the throttle all the way in augmenter all the time. Like sometimes you got to pull it all the way back to idle and just kind of take a breath and relax. And then you got to come back up to mill power and just at a sustainable pace. If you're trying to run fast all the time, you're going to wear yourself out. If you're never running fast, you're just not going to be very successful and you're not going to be helping your team. So you got to find that balance where you can move around based on the tasks and the things that are at hand.
Absolutely. One thing I've heard about mill to mill couples too, like I've read, I follow the Air Force Reddit. I don't participate on there. I tried that. It didn't work out too well, but I do read some stuff on there occasionally. And one of the things I saw recurring was mill to mill couples, one of them being angry at the other for being more successful. So that competitive nature even impacted their home life. What's your thoughts on that?
So I can say, I'm a competitive person when it comes to sports, but I'm not competing against him. One, he outranks me the whole time anyway, so why try? Um, and two, he supported me the whole time. Like there was never any competition. And I'll tell you, even one thing I will tell you that bothered me throughout my career is because he has been a group chief at the last 3+ bases or higher. You know what I mean? He's been in a position of higher power than I have, which would put him at a seat for a board, right? So if I was up for an award or if I was up for strats or any of that kind of stuff, he would actually remove himself from it. Even though he was whatever group chief or whatever position, he completely removed himself and had somebody else fill in for him because he said, I don't want my wife or anybody else to think that I had anything to do with however this plays out. And he didn't have to do that, but it really meant a lot to me because one thing that I've heard as a mill to mill couple is I only got to where I got because of who I'm married to. So when I was a staff sergeant and I made tech, it was only because I was married to a master. And I'm like, huh? And then when I made master, it was only because I was married to a chief, I think. And I'm like, that's not the way it works, but I kept hearing that. But the people that knew me and saw what I was bringing to the table knew that wasn't true. But, that little, nipping at you it still gets to you, right? Because you're giving your best and someone is trying to take it away from you. And, so I would offer that people don't listen, mill to mill couples don't listen, if they're in that position that you're working as an individual, yes, as a team, but you're also an individual and what you bring to the table. So,
and I think I have heard that before. I've had mill to mill couples come up one or the other and ask me something and kind of alluded to that was the thing that was going on. But what I would say to that is, you should always want to be on a strong team, and there should be no stronger team than your spouse. In general, but if you're mill to mill, you have such an added benefit that they understand what's going on, right? They understand if you have to put in the extra hours, why. They understand the context of what's going on behind. There's downfalls with that because they understand what's going on and they understand, right? But you're never going to be on a stronger team than you are with your mill to mill spouse, just because they completely understand you as a person. And then they understand what you're going through on the military side. So just from a mill, and I'm not downplaying anyone else's, any civilian spouse or whatever construct your family is in. But, for those mill to mill couples, lean on them, right? They understand what you're going through. Team up with them for you both to be successful. Do not make it a competitive thing where it's one or the other, because that's not good for anyone. right? That's not good for either of you, and it's not good for your teammates. It's not good for your family. So focus on being a team instead of being competitors.
Absolutely. And Kristy, you talked about a time where Josh helped you through a really tough situation that made you want to just give up and throw in the towel, and you didn't. He had you hang in there, and you've done incredibly well since then. So has there been a time where it was the roles were reversed and you were really there for Josh to help him when he was going through a tough time?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yes.
There was.
That you're okay with sharing? I'm sure there's some stories you're like, hey, but there might be some.
We're pretty open.
When so I was the command chief at El Dafra from 20 to 21 through kind of the heart of COVID, and coming out of that job, I was not selected for a follow-on command chief job, right? So I was salty. I was a little bit frustrated. I was disappointed more so than anything, and I got a job that was an awesome job as well. I was the Global Strike Command Senior Enlisted Leader for the Inspector General, right? And Kristy got to go do a job that she wanted to do. Like this was her job of jobs, like the thing she wanted. And so it was the compromise we talked about earlier. It was a communication. Like, all right, I didn't get to go do what I wanted to do, but there was something that she really wanted to do, so we went there. But the job didn't challenge me the same way that being a command chief did, or even being as a maintenance group chief. And so I was a little bit down in my feelings. I was not myself, and so probably 2-3 months in, she called me on it. She's like, hey, Josh, you really need to figure this out. Like, you're not yourself. You're not acting like yourself. You're not doing things like you normally would. You're not interacting with people like you normally would. So, what's the deal? Let me help you figure it out. And so, we talked it out, and I figured out that it was just me needing to get over myself, really. Like, I was in an amazing job. The Air Force kept Kristy and I together, so we weren't again apart, and I just needed to see that. But I wouldn't have been able to see that if she wouldn't have been like, hey, you're really not yourself. And it gets back to the, everything happens for a reason. Like, the job that I'm in now is such a high pace. If I would have came out of being away from my family for a year at a deployed location as a command chief straight into this job, it would have been really stressful on our family, because I'm gone. I don't know if more than I'm here is the right word, but sometimes it seems that way. And so by being able to have that job where I was home every day, I got to stay home for the kids to go to school. I was able to reconnect with Kristy. I was able to reconnect with my family, but I didn't know that until she really kind of called me on it and helped me see it. So I would say that that's a time that she's really helped me.
Yeah. Wow. That really resonates with me too. I think that is so tough for anyone when they're going up and up and up, and they're taking it in stride. I mean, they're feeling great. They're ready for that next big thing. And suddenly you kind of find yourself in a spot that you're like, wait a second, this is like, easier than what I was doing. This is like, what's going on? Why am I going the other way? I mean, I feel like anyone coming out of a DSD feels that way. I really do, because I feel like the DSD program's a little too good, in my opinion, because, I went from supervising 2 airmen to 60 a year. And then I go back to the 2 airmen, or as a flight chief even, which is still not as big as a DSD position. And then you're thinking, wow, this is really different. Like this. And, I think that patience and being humble is just so important. And I wish I wish I had a Kristy in my life to have guided me in that time, because that is tough. And, how cool for your wife and you to have such a good relationship that she's able to give you that feedback. And then you receive it so well. That's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely need it. And, and after that, I found other things on top of, making the IG the best it could be. Found other things to keep me busy, right? So if that individual job didn't challenge me to the capacity I needed, then I found other things. And Chief Mel Smith, the Global Strike Command Chief, was really good about helping me find things that gave me purpose, gave me something to be challenged by, while also making sure the IG was on point. So big shout out to her as well.
I want to give her a shout out as well, because she's, there's certain people that like you just keep getting put in your life. Like, and it's such a big military service, it is kind of a unique thing when that same person just keeps showing up. And she's been there throughout, like since I was at Whiteman, since I was a tech sergeant, I was filling in as an undershirt and she was like the mentor for the shirt council. So I got to know her then. And then through the honor guard process, I got to go TDY and have her there and just talk to her and hang out with her for like a whole week. I just kept running into her. And then at AFSA, I got to spend time with her again in Dallas. And she's just such a special person that everywhere she goes, just magical things happen around her. So I want to give her a shout out as well for just, all the lives she's impacted, including yours, which is really cool.
Yep.
So question on the command chief, both of you. Yes, for both of you. Question on the command chief role. Is this the first time you've held that position?
So I did it for a year in El Dafra from 2020 to 2021. Went back to Global Strike, like we just kind of talked about, for a year. And then I've been here at the 435th for about a year and 5 months now.
So my question to you, Josh, is that I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know what a command chief was until I've been in for a hot minute. Like you hear the title, you're like, what is that? I think it's a lot more well known now because the social media and the engagement seems to be higher now than like when we first joined. But I was hoping you could kind of run us through, like, what is the difference? Was there different skills that you had to bring to the table? Is it completely different than being, let's say, like a group chief? Like, how different is that command chief role?
So first, before I touch that part, I couldn't name a command chief that I had experienced or been on a base with until I was a tech sergeant, right? So anything before that, I couldn't tell you any of the base command chiefs or senior enlisted advisors or anything like that. It wasn't until I got to Kadena and Mike Warner was the command chief there when I made master sergeant. And so that's really the reason why, it was that senior NCO induction where he was there. And then I can tell you all of the command chiefs after that, but that's when my eyes were kind of like, wow, okay, this command chief. I think the biggest thing for me, the difference between, a squadron chief or group chief or command chief is, I try to focus on the things that only I can do at that level. So if the group chiefs are handling the down and in and anything in their group and the squadron chiefs in that, I'm giving them the information, I'm giving them the tools, I'm giving them the avenue for them to be successful in their roles. And then I'm taking care of whatever they need me to do above them. And I'm, communicating with my boss to make sure I'm translating and effectively communicating his vision and intent for our unit, as well as that of the Air Force and our MAGCOM. So I'm kind of that in between where my job is solely focused on making sure people are taken care of and that they have what they need to be successful in their job to execute the mission, to make sure we're growing, developing airmen, and that we're taking care of families as well. So kind of that broad spectrum of leadership, right? So I told you when I was a young maintainer, like all I want to do is fix airplanes. In a way, I like this job because I'm still a problem fixer. I'm still a solver of problems. The problems that I'm solving now are just kind of not something I can fix in a shift or not something I'm even probably going to fix in a week. They're kind of drawn out problems that I'm working with the MAGCOM or, the SIMSAF or whoever I need to be working with to try to solve those problems. So that's kind of how I would wrap up the difference.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic answer. Kristy, you said you're in charge of like the Chiefs group on base. You're like the lead for that?
Well, only because I'm the president of the private org. That's the only reason.
Okay. I've been told before, when you've been in a while, you get to hear a lot of different struggles, a lot of different approaches. You've had a lot more talks. And one thing I've heard over and over again is being a female and being a chief and being at the top of the chain, the food chain, can have some of its own unique struggles. And I was hoping, if you've dealt with that, if you can share, how that experience has been for you.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, even now, so I'm the MAGCOM functional for my career field here in USAFE and Africa, of course. And I will tell you, I'm the only female. I'm the only female chief in A3. And typically that is the norm. If I sit down at a table, there's rarely another female sitting at the table with me. And normally it's okay. Like it doesn't, like it is just what the norm has always been. I will tell you, I feel like it's gotten better. There has been times that I've been asked to leave for the sole fact that I was a female and they wanted to talk things that they didn't want me there for. And I do have a problem with that, right? Because if you're going to say something, you should be able to say it in front of me too. But again, I feel that things have gotten so much better than, they had been in the past. There are definitely challenges. I'm not going to lie. I think nobody knows what that challenge looks like unless they are in that lens. You know what I mean? Whether we're talking a different ethnic, a different gender, whether you come from a different place, I come from the deep South, and, it used to have its own stereotype. But I will say, I think that we are getting better, you know what I mean, overall. So I know I didn't pinpoint a specific thing. I want to keep it positive on this one.
No, I appreciate that. And I've noticed myself it's gotten better. Of course, that's just my perspective. So I always like asking, other people's perspective too, just to make sure what I'm seeing is kind of in line with, what others are seeing as well. So, I'm sure Chief Bass being where she's at definitely helps, right? Because that's making history right there. So very cool time to be serving right now. Want to ask about being parents. I don't think we talked too much about being parents. How old are your kids and how many do you have?
So I want to add one quick thing. So Chief Bass is my career field, our little teeny tiny 1,800 strong career field. She's one of them.
And also Chief Kwiatkowski here at USAFE.
Yep. And the USAFE chief, he is too. Sorry, just a little plug from a little small career field.
But two kids.
I love that.
2 kids. Kaylin is 13 and Hayden's 11. So 8th and 6th grade. Doing big things. They're growing up really fast. It's actually a little bit scary right now because they're Hayden's wearing what, size 9.5 shoes. Like he's not far from having the same size shoe as I wear, and he's 11. And he just scored. Like we were at a soccer game on Sunday, and he did like a pretty big left-footed roundhouse kick and put it in the back of the goal and scored 2 goals Saturday at his soccer practice or soccer game. So they're doing amazing things.
That's awesome. As military couples, especially with the amount of responsibility you have, any feedback to any, new mill-to-mill couples that just had their baby, they're not sure really how to balance that or how to figure that out. Do you have any tips for those new parents?
So I'm gonna speak as a mom on this one. I felt so much pressure to get back to work. Again, whenever I had, when we had our babies, there was not paternity leave. I think with Hayden there might have been, but not with Kaylin. Or no, maybe not.
You had some, but it wasn't as long.
I'm talking you.
Oh, no, I didn't have any.
Okay, so there wasn't even paternity leave when we had kids. It was 6 weeks for me to get back to work and to wear the same uniform. And it was in 6 months, you had to have your PT test done, right? So I'm so grateful for the shout out to the people who are making those changes because they were definitely needed. So it's super cool. I would tell any parent, especially, I can only speak from the mom side, to take your time, to love your child, to get to know your child, embrace them as much as they can with the 12 plus weeks, plus or minus, whatever the case is, to be with their child, to take that time and to not feel eager that they're missing something out on work or that they're going to get behind. I can tell you, I've rated on a lot of people who have had babies and their EPDs now have not been effective, and they don't look any different than they would have before, because typically the people, if they're killing it, they're going to kill it the whole time. And just because they had a baby and they're out for those 4 months or whatever, isn't going to deter from that. And I encourage them to take the time to be with their baby. That is one of the things that I see right now that is happening. So that's my input.
And I would say, be deliberate when you're spending time with your family. Sometimes this is something that I've been working on for a while, is, you come home and you're wore out from the day. And so you just want to do whatever to wind down. But sometimes you got to make sure you're deliberate, whether it's during the week or during the weekend. But you got to find that deliberate time for both your spouse. That's another thing that we still work on. But also with your kids, to do whatever it is that you do to bond. But making the deliberate effort to bond with them and spend time with them is an important thing.
Absolutely. It sounds like, just where your intention is at is huge. And, as I navigate being a senior NCO myself and a parent, husband, like taking care of yourself is so important to like meet all those demands. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? The times that I didn't take care of myself, I would just go home and just fall asleep on my couch, and my kids are like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" So how do y'all, take care of yourselves and all this responsibility that you've just outlined for us over the past hour? What does your self-care routine look like?
So I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. So when we were at Minot, this was April of 2018, I left for a deployment. And on the way to my deployment, I took one of these pictures where your face is up and you snap it. And it's supposed to be like a really flattering look because it's looking down on you. It was not
Absolutely.
a flattering look, right? I was
Oh, snap.
215 pounds, and I was like, oh man, like what happened? Like, just was too focused on work. I was too focused on all of the things, and I wasn't doing self care. And so in that 6 months, I decided I was going to make a massive change. I lost 45 pounds in 6 months, get there at 215, came back at like 170, 175. And, from that point on, I've been right around 175 ish, for the last, 5 years. And so what we do is it's a little bit of our bonding time. And so in the morning, the only time that we really control our day is early in the morning. Throughout the day, you got no control. And then by the time you get home, kids have sports. You got to get, everyone has to get fed. You got to clean up. You got to do all those end of day things. And so the only time you control is early in the morning. So we work out early in the morning together because that's the time we control. And so you get that time. And then I told you earlier, when you do a little bit of physical activity with some mental activity as well, you can listen to a book and work out at the same time, which seemed weird at the beginning until I cranked up the speed, to like 1.5 or so. And then a little bit faster pace makes it a little bit easier to run to.
I never thought of that. I'll look into that. I saw the option, but I've never actually used it. But that's interesting to kind of have the cadence of the Audible, the same cadence as like your workout.
Yeah, even now, normal listening, I don't listen to it at a 1.0. I'm usually at least like a 1.2 to 1.4, just because that 12-hour book gets knocked down to 9.5 or 10 or whatever, so you get through them a little bit quicker. And we both speak fast, so I might have to be able to listen fast too.
Nice. What
So
about
I
you,
will tell
Kristy?
you, I have tried the whole over the one times. I said the 1.2, it does not work for me. Because I'm
Does
a
that sound
visual
like
person.
chipmunks or something?
Yes, it does. So if I read, you know what I mean? Like I'm much more a visual person than I am audible. So I tried it one time. I didn't hear anything they said. So good luck. Hopefully it'll work for you. I agree with him. I know not everybody's a morning person. We are morning people. So we typically get up around 4:30, give or take. And then, we go in there and we converted our garage into a gym, which is, pretty nice. And that's where we get our time. It solely because we want to, right? Some people, they might want to work out at 9 or whatever time that they have that. For us, about 4:30 in the morning is it. We get our cardio in, we get our weights in, and life is good.
That's amazing. Wow. Y'all are inspiring me. Like, y'all are just an amazing team. I feel like y'all can do anything at this point. Like, y'all are just like superheroes in my mind. We've had an amazing talk. I feel like I've been trying to keep track of like what you put in there, Kristy. I think we hit pretty much all of it. Is there anything as we come to a close here that we did not talk about that you want to make sure we fit in this conversation?
I get asked a lot, like, what in and above all the things we've talked about, what are the things that made me be able to get to where I'm at, right? And so I really boiled it down to 4 things. Be really good at your job. Like when your boss comes in with the hardest job, the toughest thing, you should want them to think your name. Like I want, for me, Josh, to do that job. And if you're that good at your job, you're going to tend to be successful. So be good at your job. The second part is be willing to say yes to opportunities, right? So and think about it like this, Josh, if, we're both out at Eglin with you and, I come the first time, hey, Josh, you want to go down to the beach? You're like, no, I'm busy. And next time, like, hey, you want to go over to McGuire's? Like, no, I'm busy. By the third time, I may not come to you again and say, hey, do you want to go hang out? Because you turn me down 3 times. Opportunities are kind of like that too, right? So be willing to say yes to opportunities. And if you can't, be honest why. Like if you're overtasked or over whatever, but if you say yes to opportunities, that's going to help you be successful. When you get those opportunities, crush them. And if you put 100% and just like being good at your job, you crush the opportunities, then they're going to come back more and more and more. So be good at your job, say yes to opportunities. When you get the opportunities, crush them. And the last part is just don't be an asshole, right? That's probably the most cosmic part, but like your reputation precedes you throughout your career, right? And if you're a good person, your reputation will precede you for that. And if you're an asshole, your reputation will precede you for that too. And especially as you get into jobs where you start interviewing for positions, like hiring officials do call around and ask people that, hey, I see you were at Tyndall with this person or Cadena with this person. Do you know Chief Wiener? And if they say anything but, yeah, let me tell you about all the awesomeness, then it may challenge you to get into those things, into the DSDs, into the interview positions, into that kind of stuff that you want to get into. So I would say be really good at your job, say yes to opportunities. When you get an opportunity, crush it, and then just be a good person. Be the kind of person that you want to be around. You can say it, don't be an asshole, or you can say it, just be a good person. One gets a smile and it makes you remember a little bit more. The other one's really what you should be and less of what you shouldn't be. So that's what I would leave it on.
I love the don't be an asshole. And I say that because I use that same philosophy. Earlier, I told you I think there's a thing as trying too hard that rubs people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I got to do like a BTZ board kind of training event. And that was one of the rules that I outlined to them. But mine was no one wants to promote an asshole.
Yep.
And I stand by that. No one wants to give a jerk more power. Right. So just being a humble person and thinking of others first, yep, generally will not only make your life easier, but it's going to make your team a lot better.
If you think about it as a senior NCO or an NCO, like if you are a humble, good person that is always looking out for others, and you go to someone because you need to get something done for you or for your team or for whatever, you're more likely to be able to get it done if you are that good person. If you're the other guy or the other gal and you're the asshole and you come in with a big stick just swinging to get it done, like you're only going to get so much done because people aren't going to want to be there for you. They're not going to want to do more for you. They're going to do the bare minimum to get you off their back, right? And that goes with even being a supervisor too, right? Like if you're the supervisor that just swings the big stick, people are going to say just far enough in front of you to not get in trouble, to stay out of the reach of the stick. But if you're airmen, if your troops know that you have their back 100%, that you want what's best for them, and you want what's best for the mission and for the section, the unit, the squadron, the group, the wing, the whatever, they will go above and beyond to make sure that you are successful, that they are successful, and that your organization is successful, because they know it's about them being successful as well and not just what you're trying to do, right? So that's why I say those 4 things are kind of my keys to success, because if you wrap them all up, it's really just about being good at your job and being a good person. And that's not cosmic. It's not hard to do. Anyone can live by that credo, that mantra, and be successful. So that's it.
All right, Kristy, what you got?
So I will say, I mean, I think he just nailed it. But I am such a team-oriented person. I love teams. Oh, I love teams. And so I know I had added in there, like the importance of building up those around you. Like this cannot be more broadcasted. A lot of folks now, I hear it often, is that they feel that everything is about competition, that they're competing with their peer and they have to outdo their peer. And I get it that, you want to be the best and you want to get promoted, you want to get that strat, you want to get that award. And there's nothing wrong with those desires and wants, right? But you also have to remember that you don't go anywhere alone. And so I'm going to share a story that he kind of alluded to. So I was at Luke. I don't know if you know Andy Gilbert, but I love him so much. Very near and dear person to my heart. So him and I were both seniors, and there was 4 other of us on this team. Well, Andy and I were both going to run for president for the top 3. And somebody said, "Hey, did you guys know that you were both running for president?" And I'm like, "No, I want to work with him." You know what I mean? So like we called each other up and I was like, "Listen, look, I just want to be on your team. Like, I don't have to be the president. Like, I'll be the VP, I'll be the secretary, I'll be whatever you want, you know, I just want to do this together. And he was like, well, you be the president and I'll be the VP, you know, kind of, we're just playing back and forth. Needless to say, he got to be the president. I got to be the VP. We had 2 other awesome rock stars on our team. And you know what? Not that that's why we do it, but we literally did the whole thing together. We didn't argue or fight. Like, we, the whole year, just brought each other up, brought everybody else up as much as we possibly could. And in the end, all of us got promoted, right? And not that that's what it's for, but I talk about it to show people that you're not all competition, right? If you do things together, you're going to grow together, and then you're going to get to be on the other side together for whatever that looks like. It's not always, if they do this too, well, you know, we're going to be equal, or they're going to do better than me. It's not about that. It's 100% a team. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I want to share is there's nothing wrong with bringing everybody together and building them up. My crew field is very small, but to me, I think that is a bonus, because it's easy to get folks, you know, together and to see things and have discussions and to talk and to mentor, and to, you know, all the things. There are challenges because of locational and whatever, but the opportunities to bring people up with you are endless. And I wish that people would take, you know, more of that team approach than not. And the last thing that I'm going to end with is to be you. You know, I shared with you is probably the most story that hits me whenever someone took apart my personality, who was just genuinely who I am. And I wouldn't trade for who I am. I make mistakes every day. I don't always get it right, but man, I'm who I am, and I love it, right? Sure, there's things that I would love to tweak, but this is who God gave me, and I'm going to be proud. So don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself and bring others up. That's it.
And I want to tag one on, Josh, just so the bringing other people's up and working as a team. It is noticed as much when there is a team that is working together as an individual, right? And so I've seen it in my organizations. And I was talking to a command chief from over here in this AOR, and he was telling me about a squadron that he had where all of the senior NCOs would work together to support whoever was doing whatever they were doing, right? So senior NCO X is leading this wing event. All of the other senior NCOs are behind that person, pushing the whole thing forward, not for the accolades of doing it, but to make sure that senior NCO was successful. And then the next time it was a different senior NCO from that squadron doing the thing, and all of the squadron senior NCOs are helping that person be successful. And it just kept rotating, and they just kept supporting each other. And, you know, he said that was an infectious, like you were saying earlier, it was just infectious to that squadron in a positive way, where they all had each other's back. They were all trying to be successful. They were all helping each other be successful. And the morale, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the love inside that squadron was just skyrocketing, because they all knew they were together going somewhere, instead of running fast alone like that. You know, the quote goes, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. And so I think that ties perfectly into what she was saying. And I know Kristy does, I have many people that have done that for me throughout my career to get me where I'm at. And I know she feels the same way. Like, when you start getting to a certain point, you start reflecting on those that helped you get there. And my list of people that made me better is way, way longer than I would even imagine. And I hope that I can be that person for other people in the future.
I just want to add one thing real quick, that the list of people is also airmen. And I'm talking about airmen, A1C, senior airmen. Like, my team that I had at Luke, and it literally was from the newest airman that we had all the way to the master sergeants. They all helped me get to where I am. They helped me through some really dark times with the loss of some family members, and he was gone. And not only just that, but even at work, they helped improve processes that changed 3 MAGCOMs, right, for my crew field. Like, these young airmen are so amazing. So when we say team, it's not just senior NCOs, it's not just NCOs, but it's airmen too. Like, it's and officers. Let's not forget our friendlies. They're awesome too.
No, when you build that environment of trust and people know you have their back, the creative ideas that they're going to bring to the table are going to be next level. And otherwise you never would have heard those ideas, right? They just assume that, you know, they're not going to be heard, or they're going to be called dumb or crazy or whatever. But it's truly when you have a team like that, when, you know, policy changes for entire match comms, right? Because that trust was there and they were comfortable with sharing those process improvements or the areas that needed a little bit of love and attention. So I think that's incredible. The best team I ever had was also an honor guard, where I had amazing teammates, amazing airmen, an amazing boss, and it all just culminated to, like, I mean, I saw the light. I really did. I saw like what we're all capable of. And it's just like, how do we get that over and over? How do we keep getting that? And every team's different, but once you've seen it once, like, you know that you want to repeat that with every team that you ever come across, because you know that that's what truly unlocks the potential, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's that transformational leadership and transformational just teamwork, right? When you have that going on, you want some more of it, right? And that's why positivity draws positivity, because people want to be around that feeling. It's that dopamine hit. It's the feeling you get that you need some more.
Absolutely.
You have that, by the way. Every time I see you in photos, that you're glowing. People around you are glowing. And so keep doing what you're doing with this podcast. Like, seriously, it is amazing. I hope
I appreciate
it's okay
that.
if I call it a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thank you so much for that. I was drinking way too much, miserable person, just wanted to quit life. And so I'm thankful for every day that I'm here. And every person that I talk to, I'm trying to reach Airman White who didn't have that mentor or that advice. And so this conversation, in my mind and in my heart, someone's going to be searching for this information, and they might not have it in real life, but they're going to hear Josh and Kristy and what they have to say. And that's going to help just so many people out there. So thank you so much for coming on HeroFront, for, you know, pouring your heart and souls into each other, into your kids, into your work, and really showing us, you know, what we're all capable of. I think you're just an amazing example of a successful and beautiful, loving life. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.